Welcome to Cody in the Cinema. Today I'm discussing Night Passage, a James Stewart Western that I believe is a little bit underrated. Some people don't like it at all, and Rotten Tomatoes, they don't love it. Anthony Mann, who worked with James Stewart on some of the greatest Westerns of all time, called it trash, or at least the project trash, and it caused a rift between them. And on the surface, it is kind of a silly movie. James Stewart playing an accordion. Maybe it doesn't, completely land for everybody, but for me, I found it to be a pretty fun, entertaining little Western. Something a little bit more comedic, a little bit more lighthearted, and perhaps that's, a contrast to what Anthony Mann and he developed together over the years. This film has 2 or 3 key strengths, and number one, far and away, is just the setting and the visuals and the style. Okay, this film, if you're a fan of Colorado, you got to see it, period. This movie was shot all around the Durango train line area. And I've been to Durango because twice, because I like Mesa Verde National Park, and it's also between that and the Great Sand Dunes in Colorado. So sometimes you can drive if you're taking that road trip between the two. So you'll probably stop in Durango if you go there. And I've looked at the train station a few times and just never felt like sitting down more because we've been on these long car trips. But that area is so beautiful. And if nothing else, watching this movie and the train rides that take place is worth it, because James Stewart has come into town. He's playing his accordion. There's a silly, almost like slapstick style fight in the beginning that breaks out over his music. And after that, the film attempts to be a little bit more serious because James Stewart's going to have to help with this whole ploy involving this payroll that's going to go on this train. And these payroll, they keep getting stolen. So he's going to have to help assist in some way in that, you'll see. And he may or may not get into some trouble with this outlaw named the Utica Kid, who is involved in our drama. The Utica Kid is played by Audie Murphy in a reasonable performance from him. A little tough to take him that seriously as a pseudo bad guy. I mean, I'm thinking of 3:10 to Yuma, and Glenn Ford maybe played a similar role, a lot better, but I'm into it for what it is. The only weak character I found in the whole film was this guy Whitey, played by Dan Durea. I thought he was a little bit over the top, kind of comically buffoonish, and it's a shame because of all those train robbers, Jack Elam's in this film and gets almost no screen time. It's really sad. It's really sad because Jack Elam, when he does get to do stuff, is Jack Elam. He's great. But so like I said, like outside of that, it's pretty to look at. And that train ride, when you're on the train ride, there's a scene where James Stewart's on top of the train and he's hanging out. I can't think of the kid's name at the moment. Brandon DeWild, yeah. Who you may recognize as the kid from Shane. Shane is one of the great all-time Westerns, right? So he's hanging out with that little kid actor, and they're just like on this train ride on the top of this like gorgeous mountain pass. It's so good to look at. The music's really relaxing. If you like relaxing Western music, you're going to like that. So one of the strengths of the film is the visual style, despite the characters who are sometimes poorly drawn. And the conflict never really reaches those heights of some of the best, even Anthony Mann Westerns like Winchester 73. That's okay. It's still fun to watch. It's still fun to look at. Another thing that I think is very good in this film, that I think makes it worth seeing regardless, there's a small gunfight, and then there's a big gunfight. No spoilers. The big gunfight makes great use of the geography and the situation in Colorado involving the railroads and the mining and stuff. That, for those of you who love that part of Colorado, you have to see. Some parts of this, I'm going to be honest, plot-wise, I looked at this film and I thought, this feels like a side mission from Red Dead Redemption 2. And there are certainly influences that, that video game pulls from all kinds of these Westerns. You're going to see some of that. If you're into that game, which I know some people that watch these Western videos are, you're going to see a little bit of Arthur and Dutch in there, especially with the Outlaws. But that shootout is really good, okay? So what happens is you have a pleasant Western. James Stewart's playing some nice accordion music here and there. They're riding on trains. They're going through Durango. Gorgeous scenery. And eventually, it's kind of hard not to like it. Now, there are two other characters. There are two throwaway love interests. One of them does almost nothing for the script. The other has a decent scene in a barn with one of the actors and a former love interest. So it's trying to hit around the edges at some of the greater Westerns and never really quite gets there. But again, because it's so fun to watch and pretty to look at, you can't help but be enchanted by it. Yeah, I felt a little bit watching this like I feel when I watch She Wore a Yellow Ribbon by John Ford. I've never felt like She Wore a Yellow Ribbon has that same narrative pull that his very best films do, but it's so pretty to look at and it's so relaxing to watch that you almost don't care. You accept it for its limitations and you love it anyway. And I think that Night Passage is a similar film in that vein. That deserves a little bit more respect that I think maybe because of similar films that were a little better, in the case of John Ford or in the case of James Stewart, it gets a little bit overshadowed. Overall, I like the movie. I ended up giving it like 3.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. Those things are all just subjective and we do them to try to give each other a little bit of an idea of where we stood on a movie. But I don't like some of the extreme negativity I see around the film because I don't think it's dull. It certainly has some moments where the writing is weak. Look at that. Subject-verb agreement from a former English teacher. Yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the film. Like I said, don't expect it to be as good as the very best Anthony Mann, James Stewart stuff, and he didn't direct this, but give it a chance. What'd you think if you've seen it already? If you found the video useful or you liked it, let me know by clicking the like button. That will help grow the channel. Consider subscribing if you haven't, because I do cover some of these topics like Westerns, Criterions, love talking about movies all the time, and we will see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.